Georgia has uniquely been Josh Heupel's biggest Achilles heel. The Dogs are on an 8-game winning streak against Tennessee, and they are the one SEC team that Tennessee faces on an annual basis, that Tennessee's faced on an annual basis under Josh Heupel, that Josh Heupel hasn't beaten. Moreover, since November of 2021, and Jimmy Hyams, our own Jimmy Hyams, has a column on this right now on Off Talk Sports, believe it or not. Check it out. Tennessee's track record at home has been terrific under Heupel. They went undefeated at home last year. They went undefeated at home in 2022. Over the last 3 seasons, their only home loss is Georgia 2023. Since November of 2021, they only have 2 home losses, both to Georgia. Why has Georgia been Josh Heupel's biggest Achilles heel beyond even Alabama and Florida? That's Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. CityHeatandAir.com, CityHeatandAir.com. Why has Georgia been Josh Heupel's biggest Achilles heel beyond Alabama and Florida and any other elite team you want to plug in there? I was beating Alabama twice. One of those times was Nick Saban, and he still hasn't been able to beat Georgia. I have some theories. This is still just Hot or Cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air. We're going to get the poll question up because there's 4 potential answers here. I got some possibilities, and I'm going to say whether or not I'm hot or cold on this being the main reason. Number 1, Georgia's just been better. I'm hot on that partially. Over Josh Heupel's first 4 years at Tennessee, Georgia's had the better team all 4 years. I mean, they have. They won the national title in 2021 and 2022. They won the SEC title in 2024. They played for the SEC title in 2023. They have just been better. So I'm actually pretty hot on that. The problem is Alabama was better than Tennessee if you look at the just overall talent across the board in 2022, and Tennessee beat them pretty significantly too. They didn't beat them significantly, excuse me. Well, no, they did. It was Bryce Young keeping Alabama in that game. Didn't stop Tennessee from beating Alabama that year. Also, Clemson put more players in the NFL than Tennessee over recent years, and Tennessee blew them out in the Orange Bowl that year. So it is shocking that Tennessee could do that to Alabama, but they couldn't do it to Georgia, that they could score 52 against Alabama and only 13 against Georgia that year. That's been a big question. That's the first one, is that Georgia's just been better. I mean, that's true, and I'm hot on that, but I'm actually cold overall on that being one of the reasons. I'm actually cold on that being one of the reasons. I just don't think it makes the most sense. Actually, but I will say I'm hot. I mean, that's partially the reason. That's half the reason. That I'm going to get there's 4 potential possibilities. That's one of the 2. So I'm hot on that as being one of the reasons. Georgia's just been better. They've won 8 straight. Tennessee won 9 straight, by the way, for those who don't know, between 89 and 99. So they still haven't called Tennessee straight. Another potential reason. There's a lot of belief that Kirby Smart's scheme neutralizes Heupel's offense. This was what stood out in 2022. Josh Heupel uses wide splits. And he runs the wide splits. And his idea with the wide splits is this. You have to commit either blitz or commit to guarding the receivers one-on-one. But you cannot disguise your coverage, because the guy you're going to send on a blitz, the quarterback's going to see that before the ball is snapped, and then he's going to know where to go. Kirby Smart just didn't disguise many coverages. He trusted his corners one-on-one with Tennessee's receivers on the outside. And it's because Georgia's cornerbacks are just that good. I think that is true, but I'm cold on that as a reason that that's been Heupel's biggest Achilles heel. Because let's just go back to 2022 again. You're going to tell me Alabama didn't have athletic corners? You're going to tell me Nick Saban couldn't have schemed for something like that? I mean, Nick Saban invented pattern matching, breaking on zone read. I mean, breaking from a zone to a man when a receiver cuts. And I refuse to believe that Kirby Smart's the only one to figure this out. So I'm actually cold on that reason, even though it stands out. Another big one. Tennessee was injured when it had its best chance to beat Georgia. And I'm talking about 2022. Cedric Tillman was coming back, but he was banged up and he wasn't 100% when Tennessee faced Georgia in 2022. Hendon Hooker was trying to get him the ball too much, and that actually helped the point of Heupel's scheme being neutralized by Kirby Smart because Tillman wasn't fast enough. I'm cold on that too because I think that had that been the case, Heupel would have pulled Tillman and kept Brew McCoy out there. And Brew McCoy was the reason, but this was before his leg injury. That would have been the reason. He was the biggest reason that Brew McCoy would have been the biggest reason that Tennessee beat Alabama that year because he did kid coverage. He could have done it against Georgia too. So I'm cold on that. Another one, rain. That's an interesting one is rain. But that's because in 2022, Tennessee played Georgia in the rain, and the rain slowed down the offense. But again, rain slows down defense a lot of times more than offense. It's overrated that rain slows down your offensive production in a passing attack. It actually slows down the defense even more. So I'm cold on that as well. For those who want to question that, don't forget 1995 when Tennessee played Florida in the Swamp. Monsoon came down in the second half, and Spurrier's offense went off scoring 41 points because they were so much faster than Tennessee's defense in that rain. But there's one key reason Georgia's been Tennessee's biggest Achilles heel, and it doesn't apply to this year, and it's another reason Tennessee fans should be excited. Hot or Cold brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. cityheatandair.com.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Here's the biggest reason that Georgia was Josh Heupel's Achilles heel. The times they've been good enough to beat Georgia, the times they have had enough talent to beat them, even if they weren't better than them, they just happen to be playing them on the road. And I'm hot on that. What do I mean by that? Tennessee's best season under Heupel so far, their best team was 2022. You can ask why they beat Alabama and lose to Georgia that year? Because they played Alabama at home and lost to Georgia on the road. They're very good under Heupel. I told you guys in the last segment that they struggle a lot on the road, and that's a big problem. So that's the biggest reason, honestly. And then the second best team they've had under Heupel was last year with Nico Iamaleava. And last year with Nico Iamaleava, again, they played, even though you can question him, but they played Georgia on the road. They got to play Alabama at home. Guys, it's really that simple. I mean, there's really no other way around it. The years they've been good enough to compete with Georgia, they played them on the road. They just happened to play them on the road. This year, they look good enough to compete with Georgia, and they're getting them at home. There's a reason Vegas is higher on Tennessee this year than it has ever been. And so I think there's a lot to be excited about with this team because of that. So again, playing Georgia on the road is the biggest reason that Tennessee hasn't beaten them yet. Because guess what? The only years they've been good enough to beat Georgia on the road, had enough talent to upset them, they were facing them there. When's the last time Georgia lost a game at home? They went undefeated in the regular season in 2021, 2022, and 2023. They lost 2 games last year. Both were on the road in the regular season. You guys can correct me. I don't believe Ole Miss was at home, right? I'm pretty sure it wasn't. Yeah, no, they lost to Ole Miss on the road. Okay. So 2021, 2022, 2023, they didn't lose at home. 2020, they didn't lose at home. Their last home loss, guys, shockingly, 2019 to South Carolina. Will Muschamp, when they lost 20-17 in double overtime. That South Carolina team was 4-8. That's the last time they lost at home. That's pretty wild when you really think about it. So, yeah, I think that's the real story, is that it's just the fact that Georgia doesn't lose at home, and when Tennessee has been good enough to beat Georgia, they were playing them on the road. I think that's why Georgia's been Heupel's Achilles heel. I get that Georgia's the only team to beat Heupel since in Knoxville since then. That's the stat you could bring up since November of 2021. But guys, let's be honest. If Tennessee played Alabama at home in 2021, they'd have lost. If they played Alabama at home in 2023, they'd have lost. Okay, because that they weren't good enough those 2 years. Their better teams were 2022 and 2024. And I think when you take that into account, that's really why it's been the way it's been. I don't really think there's anything like that shocking to it, honestly. I just think that Tennessee is overall not been able to get Georgia at home when they've been good enough to beat Georgia at that time. So yeah, that's a very good sign for Tennessee going into this weekend.